Chapter 10. Following a Clue. With soaring spirits, Nancy walked homeward. I wonder, she thought, how the Tophams will feel about Josiah Crowley's old clock if it costs them the inheritance they're counting on. At dinner that night, Nancy chatted with unusual animation, deciding not to tell of her exciting plans until after Hannah had served dessert. Mr. Drew, however, sensed that big news was coming. "My dear," he said, laying a hand on his daughter's arm, "you look like the cat that swallowed the canary. What's the big scoop?" Nancy giggled. "Oh, Dad, I can't keep any secrets from you." Then, as the table was cleared, the young sleuth told of her great stroke of luck. "And just think, Helen invited me to her aunt's camp." "Good," her father commented, smiling. "You can combine business with pleasure, Nancy. Swimming and boating and fun with the girls will provide a much-needed vacation." "May I start first thing in the morning?" his daughter asked. "An excellent idea, Nancy. The change will do wonders for you. Go, by all means." Hurriedly, she packed a suitcase, and the next morning was off to an early start. Moon Lake was about a 50-mile drive. One way to go was past the Hoover girls' farm, and Nancy decided to stop there. As she approached the house, the young sleuth heard singing. It was coming from the barn. How beautiful, Nancy thought, as the clear soprano voice went through a series of trills and flute-like scales. In a moment, the singer appeared, and Nancy teasingly applauded. Allison's eyes danced. "Thanks. I was just trying to imitate some of the greats." "You'll be great yourself one of these days," Nancy prophesied. "Not unless I get some money to finance lessons," Allison said. "Any news, Nancy?" "Sort of. I've had a little luck." At this moment, Grace appeared and instantly invited Nancy to stay, but the young detective said she too had work to do. "I hope to have a good report for you soon," she added, and waved goodbye. Grace's face brightened, and Allison declared cheerfully, "Then there's still hope? We are so lucky to have you as a friend, Nancy. Come see us again soon, please." Resuming her journey, Nancy soon branched off from the river road and headed toward Moon Lake. As she drove along, her thoughts revolved constantly around the Crowley relatives and the Hoovers. She sighed. How different things would be for them now if Josiah Crowley hadn't been so secretive. Her reverie was ended by the sudden strange actions of her car. It kept veering to the left of the road in spite of her efforts to keep it in the middle. With foreboding, Nancy stopped and got out to make an inspection. As she had suspected, a rear tire was flat. "Oh dear," she murmured in disgust. "Such luck." Though Nancy was able to change a tire, she never relished the task. Quickly, she took out the spare tire from the rear compartment, found the jack and lug wrench, and went to work. By the time her job was completed, she was hot and a little breathless. "Whew!" she exclaimed as she started on her way again. "I'll be ready for a nice cool swim in Moon Lake." It was after 12 o'clock when she came in sight of Camp Avondale, run by Helen's aunt. Through the tall trees, Nancy caught a glimpse of cabins and tents. Beyond, the blue lake sparkled and glimmered in the sunlight. As Nancy drove into the camp, a group of girls gathered about her car. Helen came running out of a cabin to greet her chum. "Girls, it's Nancy Drew!" she exclaimed joyfully and made introductions. Nancy did not know any of the campers, but in no time they made her feel warmly welcome. "Nancy," said Helen, "park your car back of the dining hall, then come have lunch." "That sounds wonderful," Nancy laughed. "I'm nearly starved." First, she was escorted to the main building where she met Aunt Martha, the camp director, and registered. "May she stay with me?" Helen asked. "Certainly, dear. And I hope you have a splendid time, Nancy." I'm sure I shall, Aunt Martha. As the two girls walked off, Nancy told Helen about selling the charity dance tickets and gave her the money paid by Mr. Topham. He surely was generous, Helen commented in surprise. Then she smiled wryly. I have a feeling he did it more for social prestige than sympathy for the cause. Nancy scarcely had time to deposit her suitcase under her cot and freshen up after the long ride when lunch was announced by the ringing of a bell. Campers hurried from all directions to the dining hall. The food was plain but appetizing, and Nancy ate with zest. The meal over, she was rushed from one activity to another. The girls insisted that she join them in a hike. Then came a cooling dip in the lake. Nancy enjoyed herself immensely, but the Crowley mystery was never far from her mind. I must find out where the Topham's cottage is located, she reminded herself, and next managed to go there alone. Nancy's opportunity to accomplish the first part of her quest came when Helen suggested about 5 o'clock, how about going for a ride around the lake in the camp launch? There's just time before supper. Wonderful! Nancy accepted readily. By the way, can you see many of the summer cottages from the water? Oh, yes, lots of them. Helen led her friend down to a small dock and with 4 other girls climbed into the launch, a medium-sized craft. As one of the campers started the motor, Helen remarked, It's always a relief to us when this engine starts. Once in a while it balks, but you never know when or where. Yes, spoke up a girl named Barbie. And when you're stuck this time of year, you're stuck. There are hardly any cottagers up here yet, so their boats are still in winter storage. As the little launch turned out into the lake, Nancy was entranced with the beautiful sight before her. The delicate azure blue of the sky and the mellow gold of the late afternoon sun were reflected in the shimmering surface of the water. What a lovely scene for an oil painting, she thought. As they sped along, however, Nancy kept glancing at the cottages, intermingled with tall evergreen trees that bordered the shoreline. The Tophams have a bungalow up here, haven't they? She questioned casually. Yes, it's across the lake, Helen replied. We'll come to it soon. Is anyone staying there now? Oh, no, the cottage is closed. It's being looked after by Jeff Tucker, the caretaker. He's the tallest, skinniest man I've ever seen outside a circus. Is it hard to get to the place? Not if you go by launch, but it's a long way if you take the road around the lake. Helen looked at her friend. I didn't know you were particularly interested in the Tophams, Nancy. Oh, they're not friends of mine, as you know, Nancy returned hastily. I was merely curious. After a time, as the launch slowed down and chugged along close to shore, Helen pointed out a wide path through the woods. At the end of it stood a large, rambling white cottage. That's the Topham place, she said. Trying not to appear too eager, Nancy looked intently at the bungalow. She made a quick mental note of its location. Tomorrow, I'll visit that place and try to solve the mystery, she told herself. End of chapter 10.